Babylon has captured the human imagination for over 2,000 years, yet much of its real story is still buried in mystery and sand. We often wonder if the Tower of Babel really reached the heavens, or if the Hanging Gardens were just a beautiful story made up by Greek writers who never saw them. We wonder what mysterious illness could have killed Alexander the Great at the peak of his power, leaving his body untouched for 6 days, as if time had stopped. To understand the city's tragedy, we must look at the moment its heart was destroyed in 539 before the Common Era. Persian soldiers invaded the Temple of Marduk and took a 7-meter-tall golden statue covered in lapis lazuli, an act the priest Belshimani said destroyed the city's soul. 2,500 years later, the golden statue's location is still unknown, leaving a gap where a great power once stood. This is not just a story of stone and brick, but of how a small city rose to power and then vanished into the echoes of history. If you are subscribed and ready to walk through the blue gates of the past, let us begin our journey back to where it all started. In 1894, before the Common Era, Babylon was just a small city-state, overshadowed by wealthier neighbors like Ur, Uruk, and Lagash. It was an ordinary town on the Euphrates until Hammurabi became king and led a 43-year campaign of careful ambition. He was a master strategist, using alliances, betrayals, and careful wars to defeat his neighbors one by one. By 1792, before the Common Era, he had united all of Mesopotamia, turning Babylon into the shining capital of a vast empire. To make sure his kingdom lasted after his death, he did something revolutionary and created a code of 282 laws carved into a large black stone pillar. These laws were posted in public so that no citizen could claim ignorance and no judge could act with unfair cruelty. While the code is famous for the phrase, "an eye for an eye," it was actually a detailed system covering everything from property rights to divorce. However, justice depended on class, so a noble might pay a fine for harming a slave, but lose an eye for harming someone of their own rank. Beyond the law, Hammurabi aimed for the divine, building the Etemenanki, a 7-story ziggurat that reached 91 meters into the sky. This massive tower, which served as the inspiration for the biblical Tower of Babel, was a statement to the world that Babylon had reached the heavens. After centuries of decline and Assyrian rule, the city found its greatest leader in 605 before the Common Era, when Nebuchadnezzar II became king. He worked to make Babylon the largest and most magnificent city of the ancient world, eventually home to over 200,000 people. The city had walls so thick that legends say chariot races were held on top, turning Babylon into a true stone fortress. His greatest achievement was the Ishtar Gate, a northern entrance covered in bright blue glazed bricks that shone like lapis lazuli in the sun. Thousands of these bricks were baked at high temperatures and decorated with 575 reliefs of dragons and bulls representing the gods. To show his wealth, he is said to have built the Hanging Gardens, an artificial mountain of plants for his wife, who missed the forests of her homeland. Greek writers named it one of the 7 wonders, but modern archaeologists have found no physical evidence of it in the city's ruins. Some think the gardens were actually in Nineveh, while others believe the story was a myth symbolizing Babylonian wealth. Regardless of the gardens, Nebuchadnezzar's reign was a golden age of wealth and military power that crushed all who dared to rebel. This is seen in 586 when his army destroyed Solomon's temple in Jerusalem and forced 10,000 people into the Babylonian exile. The cycle of power in Babylon shifted dramatically on June 10, 323 before the Common Era, inside Nebuchadnezzar's palace. Alexander the Great, who had conquered the known world, lay dying at just 32 while his generals watched in silent despair. 12 days earlier, his fever rose after a feast, and on his last breath, he whispered that his empire should go to the strongest. His death remains one of history's greatest mysteries, with theories ranging from being poisoned by his generals to catching typhoid from swamp water. Most strangely, ancient sources say his body did not decay for 6 days, looking fresh and unspoiled as if he were just asleep. After Alexander's death, his empire fell into 40 years of civil war, and Babylon's status as a global capital began to fade. His successor, Seleucus, built a new capital 60 miles north called Seleucia, leaving Babylon to decline into a provincial backwater. Greek culture started to replace old traditions, and as the population shrank, the great temples were gradually abandoned by their priests. By the time the Parthians and Romans arrived, the city's great walls were already crumbling and being taken apart by locals for building materials. The city that had shaped civilization for 2,000 years was disappearing, brick by brick, until it became little more than a memory. Over the centuries, the desert reclaimed the marble and gold, turning the once great city into quiet, sand-covered mounds. By the 3rd century of the Common Era, Roman historians often mixed Babylon with legend, sometimes even thinking it was actually Cairo or Rome. The Islamic conquests of the 7th century brought new armies to the area, but they found nothing in Babylon worth keeping and went on to build Baghdad. The new Islamic capital took on Babylon's former role, leaving the ancient ruins to be covered as the Euphrates River changed course. Nature and neglect caused much damage, but the final blow came in 1258 when the Mongol hordes reached Mesopotamia. Hulagu Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, destroyed the remaining buildings to reuse the bricks for his military camps. For the next 500 years, no one lived in the ruins, and the locals came to call the site just a forgotten pile of rubble. It was not until 1811 that a British official named Claudius Rich began excavating the mounds, showing skeptical Europe that the city was real. This rediscovery sparked renewed interest, but it also led Western archaeologists to systematically loot the city's most valuable remains. In 1899, German teams took apart the Ishtar Gate and sent it to Berlin, leaving the site in Iraq without its greatest treasure. In the late 20th century, Babylon faced a new humiliation when Saddam Hussein tried to rebuild it as a monument to his own ego. He saw himself as a modern Nebuchadnezzar and had workers build new walls and palaces directly on top of the fragile ancient foundations. These new bricks were even stamped with his name, shocking archaeologists who saw it as a permanent loss of history. The situation worsened in 2003 when the United States military built a base directly on top of the archaeological site. Heavy tanks crushed 2,600-year-old ceremonial paths, and soldiers filled sandbags with soil containing priceless ancient artifacts. After Baghdad fell, looters flooded the site, taking statues and tablets to sell on the black market. It was a devastating loss that experts thought might be irreversible, as layers of history were destroyed by modern conflict in just a few years. Thankfully, a genuine conservation effort in collaboration with UNESCO began in 2019 to stabilize the remaining walls and protect what is left. Today, Babylon serves as a somber reminder that even the mightiest empires can be undone by time, greed, and war. Its legacy survives not in its stones, but in our laws, our math, and our very understanding of what it means to be a civilization. What do you think was the true cause of Babylon's downfall? Was it the Mongol invasion, the theft of its treasures by the West, or the modern wars that obliterated its history? If this journey through the blue gates of history moved you, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into lost civilizations.